Hey everyone, welcome to today's lesson. This is a Q&A, a question and answer session in which you can ask the questions and I will try to answer as many of those questions as possible. And if for some reason I don't get to your question, still write to me in the comments. Because I love learning about, well, what is it that you need to learn about? Because it always gives me some great ideas for some future lessons. So we are going to be doing a Q&A session, and I'm going to start with questions from our members and patrons. And as we go through these, I have my vocabulary, my document here, to maybe give you guys some examples to help you better understand some of these questions that people are asking. So I want to give a quick hello and a shout out to some of you who are with me today. Hello, Sasao, Spiritual Hiba, Esther. Hi, Samuel. I am Thida Cooking. Hello, welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. Sleepwalker, Lolly, saw you guys in there. Great to have you with me. So let's just get into some of the first questions, which I said I asked some of in our community, some patrons, some members, what are questions they had, and I'm going to get to them first. So what I would say is that if you are with me right now, just hold your questions off for just a moment, and I'm going to talk about these first, and then I will open it up to more general questions. So let's go ahead and look at the first one, which is from Lolly, who was asking about the difference between even if and even though. And that is a great question. The difference between even if and even though. So I think it would be helpful to go over to our vocabulary document. So, and I'll give you some example sentences, because if you say, both of them are talking about a condition, a certain condition. Even though is talking about a condition that is true. It is actually happening. Even if is more of a hypothetical situation. So I could give you this example sentence and say, we're going to play basketball, even though it's raining, all right? This is true, all right? It's happening. So if you say even though in the condition, even though it's raining, that is something that is true. If we use even if, and I change it, we're going to play basketball even if it's raining, all right? Then, again, I'd say it's hypothetical, all right? We don't know if it's going to rain or if it's not going to rain. And we don't know this. It's hypothetical, but I say, well, even if it rains, we will still play, all right? So keep that in mind. We're talking about even though versus even if. We're using even though to talk about something that's true, all right? It's happening. Even though it's raining, all right? Which it's true. I think it is raining outside right now. Or if I want to say, like before, I don't know if it's going to rain. It may rain. It may not rain. Even if it's raining. That's the one that you would use. So again, that is one of the main differences. We're talking about that condition in the sentence. One of them's true, even though. One of them is hypothetical, even if. The next question is related to this, which is why I wanted to touch on that next. And that is from patron Takayo, who asks about confusing about if or when. And this is a little similar. And again, I think it's going to help if I give you some examples. So let me go back, well, to our vocabulary document. And I'm going to scroll down and talk about, if versus when. So I could say something, we will eat when she arrives, okay? In this case, you're talking about something is going to happen, all right? You know it's going to happen, all right? If I change it and say, we will eat if she arrives, all right, I would say this is uncertain. So in that case, if we're using when, it's something you know is going to happen. If we use if, there's a level of uncertainty. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't happen. So in this case, we will eat when she arrives. We know she is going to arrive. We will eat if she arrives. Well, maybe she arrives, maybe she doesn't. So in that case, that is a clear example of how those two are different. If we're using when, it's expressing certainty. Something will happen. If we're using if, it's uncertain. You're unsure. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, let's look at the next question. I'm trying to go through these a little quicker so that I can open up to just general questions. Oh, you're welcome, Lolly. But I'm glad. I hope that explanation helped. So the next one is from a member, Joyful, and they asked about this in a situation in which this expression is used. Speak for yourself. It is a great question because I think that when you learn an expression like this and you learn the meaning, then you can apply it to certain situations. Speak for yourself. So if somebody says, speak for yourself, the situation is that you are talking with another person, or maybe you're within a group of other people, and it's like someone is making the decision for you. And you are saying, no. That is not what I believe. That's not what I think. You speak for yourself, all right? Don't talk for me, speak for yourself. So for example, say that, I like to give examples with you and I, all right? With you and me. So if we are, maybe we're in a group, okay? And we are going to, we're trying to decide where to go to dinner. And I say, hey, we're going to get pizza. Everybody wants pizza. And maybe you're thinking, well, wait, I don't really want pizza. And you would say, okay, well, speak for yourself. I would rather go get Thai food. So again, in that case, if you use that expression, and typically it's going to come at the beginning of a sentence. So you're going to start out the statement. If somebody says something, you're going to start out and say, speak for yourself. All right, this is what I believe. This is what I think. So if somebody's trying to kind of include you in what they think, you can tell that person, no. That's what I don't think that. Speak for yourself. So it's a good phrase. I'm going to add it to our vocabulary document. Let's go down here. So they were asking about the expression, speak for yourself. I said it comes at the beginning of a statement where it's kind of saying you're telling others that you have a different opinion, all right? And then you state your opinion. And they should not be speaking on your behalf, okay? So this is when you would use it if you want to tell somebody, look, I don't agree with what you're saying. I have a different opinion. Speak for yourself. Okay, great expression. The next part, let's see. We have another question, which this question is the longer one. I will summarize it. This is from a patron couple, husband, wife, Vicky and Gustav. Gustav, I know, is feeling a bit ill, so I want to say I hope you feel better soon, Gustav. We wish you all the best. But Vicky's question is talking about Gustav is learning English and learning the present continuous and using the present continuous. And the reason why this is challenging, and this really applies to, I think, language learning in general. Because in this case, Gustav is going from German to English. And part of the challenge is that English uses a different structure than it may be used in German. And how do you overcome that? Because she was saying that this talking about helping verbs and this idea of helping verbs. How do you learn that? How do you use it correctly if it's different in your native language? And that is an excellent question. So when I think of helping verbs, I think of the present continuous tense, something that's happening now. I am teaching. I am teaching right now. The verb to be is the helping verb. Or if we're talking about perfect tenses, which in that case, have is the helping verb. I have seen this movie. So what I would say to answer that question about, well, if it's different in one language, how do you do this? Because I think when people are trying to do grammar, a lot of it is just drill and kill. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, drill and kill. It's just like you just like try to drill it into your mind and do it, and hopefully you remember. And I had this similar problem when I was learning Korean, because the structure of Korean, and hopefully this will help out maybe with answer what Vicky and Gustav were asking. The structure of Korean, the Korean language, is very different than English. For example, in Korean, the verb goes at the end. And when I was learning this grammar, I could not wrap my head around this. It was so difficult for me to think about, okay, putting the verb at the end. And anytime I tried to speak or say something, and I would try to think about, okay, where does the subject go? Where does the verb go? And what it would do is it would hinder my speaking. And I could not express myself because I was too busy trying to think of the grammar in the middle of a conversation. So one way that I got over this was, it helped me, and maybe it will help you, Gustav, is this idea of chunking. And if you're unfamiliar with chunking, it is a way that people use to build their vocabulary. And what it is that instead of learning just one word and the meaning, you learn an entire chunk. And that could be 3 words, 4 words, or 5 words. A perfect example of this is when you travel somewhere and you learn survival English or survival in any other language. And you need to know how to say, okay, where is the toilet? So instead of actually learning each and every word and how the grammar is formed, you're just going to learn that one phrase. And you know that when you say this, that is the question, where is the toilet? And that is what chunking is, that you're not focusing on the grammar so much, you're just thinking about this entire phrase or statement, and you're learning it, and you know, okay, that's what this means. And I think maybe you could do the same with trying to do these helping verbs, like the verb to be, and thinking of like a common question in the continuous tense, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And knowing that the meaning of that is you are asking somebody right now, what is happening? What action is happening at that time? And you know that, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And you now learn that chunk, and that's what you say. And then you could apply it to some answers as well. So if there's something that, like, let's take Gustav, for example. Maybe if Gustav likes to read, and somebody says, well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm reading. I'm reading a book, or I'm reading this book. And you just learn that chunk, and you know that then you're using I am reading. Instead of trying to think about the grammar of like, okay, I'm with my subject, now I need my helping verb, then I need the verb plus ing, you just learn that chunk, I'm reading, and then you know that you're going to automatically give that answer. At least that's what helped me with Korean in trying to just learn the chunk of this phrase instead of trying to think about the verb that I'm going to use and that it needs to go at the end of the sentence. So I hope that maybe helps, and chunking is a great way to, again, it's a great way to build your vocabulary. The next question that we have, we talked about this one, is from Silvio. And Silvio says, is asking about the difference between no longer and anymore? Great question. So for this one, I'm going to go back over to our vocabulary document right here and talk about, let's see, no longer versus what I'm going to add is not. All right. And the reason why I'm adding not is because when you use anymore, you're pretty much going to be using it in the negative. And in this case, no longer and not anymore, they're pretty much synonyms. You're saying that something is not happening. It was happening in the past, but it's not happening now. The difference would be a little bit in the grammar, okay? So for example, let's take the same sentence and we're going to use it. It's the same meaning, but we're going to use each one. I could say, I no longer play guitar. All right, I want to start playing again. That's true. Can you guys see this? Let me move it down a little bit. Okay, I no longer play guitar. I don't play guitar anymore. All right? These two sentences, they have the same meaning, really. You could say either one. I no longer play the guitar. Somebody asked me about this. You could say the guitar in American English. Americans, like when you talk about instruments, we like to take out the. Like I play piano, I play guitar. But I'll add the so in case people might be confused about the article. So no longer versus anymore. When you use no longer, it's going to go in between the subject and the verb. I no longer play. We no longer study. They no longer go. So no longer is going to come in between the subject and the verb. When you use anymore, you're going to use the negative not. So in this case, I do not do something, and anymore is going to go at the end of the sentence. I don't play the guitar anymore. I don't study Korean anymore. Now that I'm not living there, I haven't studied in a long time. So I no longer study Korean. So we use these both of them. You can use them to say the same thing, but the difference would be, the real main difference to me is where you're going to use it. No longer is going to come between the subject and the verb. Anymore is going to be at the end of the sentence, but you need to use it in the negative with not. All right. Let's look at the next question. What are we at? So we just answered Silvio's question. Aiden is asking about the perfect tenses. And this is something it's a long explanation, so I'm not really going to get too deep into it right now. But talking about the perfect tenses, I think also like the past perfect, the present perfect, continuous, and the difference between these two. And what I think I'll probably end up doing is following up with some future lessons and specifically focus on the difference between some of them, like the difference between using the present perfect and the present perfect continuous. And I know that some of these can be very confusing because sometimes it's interchangeable. And somebody might ask me, well, what's the difference between I've lived in Budapest or I've been living in Budapest? And you have these small little nuances. So what I'll probably do, and this is why I think it's great, this gives me ideas for future lessons. Again, thank you, Aiden, for bringing this up and drawing some more attention, because what I think I'll do is probably go through some more, especially like some quiz lessons, and give you guys a lot of questions so that you can practice, and then I'll tell you why this is the correct answer. Another question from Lolly was talking about the difference between pledge and promise, and are they interchangeable? So the short answer to that is yes. They are interchangeable, but there is a little bit of a difference between pledge and promise. Both of them are talking about a a commitment that you will do something. In general, overwhelmingly, people use the word promise. This is much more common than somebody talking about the word pledge. When I think of the word pledge, I think of something that is more official, something that is more professional. And that when I looked it up, actually, because I was kind of curious as well, that's what it said. It said the difference between promise and pledge. Let me write it down here. Promise versus pledge. So promise is kind of like you're making a commitment to do something. When I looked at pledge was just talking about, it basically said a serious promise. So I said that yes, they are interchangeable, but I think promise is just used in general. Like you promise to meet somebody for dinner, or you promise to help somebody with some work. Pledge is more serious, and I gotta add like more formal, because I think of a situation in like take the police for example, and somebody is going to become a police officer. They may make a pledge to serve and protect the citizens of the community, and they make that pledge, which is a serious and formal promise. So when I think of pledge, I think of capacities like a job like in a courtroom, or like a police, or somebody who has to take some sort of oath, and they're raising their hand and say, yes, I pledge to do something, and you're making a serious promise, all right? So they are interchangeable, but I think we use them in different situations. But that is a great question. I hope that helps. So now I want to open it up to some of you guys, and we'll go through a few questions that you guys have. Let's see. So if you have some questions, let me know. Let me look through some of them. If you have, like, I'm talking about pronunciation, vocabulary, a little bit of grammar. I'll answer them the best as I can. Let's see. So yeah, that was one question. I see some people talking about like when talking about instruments. It's very interesting about whether or not to use the or not. And I think in British English, people would definitely use the, like I play the guitar. But in the United States, many people will just take out the as though it were a non-count noun, which is a little strange. I play guitar, I play piano, something to keep in mind. Let's see, someone please make about up usages. I'm going to consider that. I think I have some phrasal verb lessons like pick up. Other than that, like the word, taking one preposition, because actually somebody else, I think Lolly had asked the question about the prepositions to and for. Prepositions are really tricky. And what I will say about prepositions is that the best way to learn that is with more reading and more listening. Because as you read and you see how the prepositions are used and used with certain adjectives or nouns, or as you listen and you hear them used with that, you're going to store that up in your active memory. And then the next time you try to speak, you will start using that preposition correctly. So it's a little difficult to take just one preposition and just talk about all the usage. The only thing that I can do, and that I was thinking about doing later on, would be taking a category. For example, like prepositions of time. Which prepositions are used with certain times, like in the morning, in the afternoon, or if you say at night. And learning those differences, that is, I think, a manageable way to actually study prepositions. Prepositions of time, prepositions of place. But it's hard to isolate just one preposition and just talk about it, but just more reading, more listening. That is definitely my suggestion for all of you guys. Excalibur, can you speak Hindi? No, I do not speak any Hindi. So let's see. Muhammad asked, what's the difference between entire and whole. So that, I think, in many ways, I think entire and whole, they could be interchangeable, because if you're talking about entire, you're talking about all of it. Same with whole. So for example, I think I want I'm going to eat the entire pizza, or I'm going to eat the whole pizza. The meaning is really the same. In that case, I think people might use entire to emphasize really like that there is a lot of it, more than usual. Like I ate the entire amount. So in that case, if you're talking about like eating, which is when I think people might think they're interchangeable, I think oftentimes people will use entire. Like, oh, I can't believe I ate the entire cake. You could say, I can't believe I ate the whole cake. The meaning is the same. But in that context, I think entire would be a little more common. It adds a little bit more emphasis. All right. I know some of you said the transmission. Sorry, I guess I'll have to check the streaming. It doesn't seem like it seems like it should be streaming okay. Hopefully it's not too bad for someone. Let's see. Trevor says, what is roll ups meaning? To roll up. So I feel like roll up can have a couple of different meanings, because again, we're talking about a phrasal verb. Many phrasal verbs have multiple meanings. So you could like roll up your sleeve, in which case you're talking about actually just rolling something and making it kind of shorter. You can roll up your sleeves. Maybe if it's raining and you roll up your pants, you don't want to get wet. It could also mean like somebody could say, you're driving somewhere and you say we rolled up to the house. In that context, you're talking about you arrived somewhere or you approached someplace. We rolled up, and most of the time I think you're talking about driving. So those would be two different meanings for the phrasal verb roll up. Let's see. Yeah, sleepwalker. Yes, you cannot remember all prepositions at once, brick by brick. That is a great way of putting it. Prepositions are like putting together like a brick wall. You're just doing it one at a time, brick by brick. Slow and steady wins the race. Let's see. Where is it? Hold on, I'm trying to see. English-wise, yeah, you can roll up things like to ball up, to roll up. Yes, those can be used interchangeably. Adriana asks, when do you use come by? So come by, I think it basically means like to visit. It's an informal way of saying you're going to visit. And for example, if I were to go talk, maybe I'm going to stop by somewhere. I say, tomorrow I'm going to come by and we're going to have a cup of tea. I'm going to come by, I'm going to visit, I'm going to stop at this place, and we are going to visit. So I think, I'm trying to think if it has any other meanings, but that is, I think, the most common one. You're going to visit somewhere, you're going to come by. Rosemary asks, what is a roller coaster? A roller coaster is a ride that you would find at an amusement park. It's probably, people think of it as the most exciting ride at the amusement park. You go fast, sometimes you loop around, and people will use it in a different context as well if they say that some experience, that it was like a roller coaster. So we often talk about it kind of as to compare it to something like, trying to think, you could say learning English. It was like a roller coaster. And it basically means it was fast, you're changing directions, it's not the smoothest ride. And in that case, like I said, if you're talking about somebody's experience, perhaps at work, or going somewhere and you want to compare it to a roller coaster, it's a great visual way to compare something to. And like, oh, it was like a roller coaster. And this is something I think people would hear quite often. Let's see. Let's see. Is it better? Curious, like Leo said, is it better to be conscious while speaking with native speakers? I'm not really sure what you mean, like conscious, like to be awake or fully. I'm sure, like I would hope that you're conscious and that you are engaging with these people, having a conversation. Ali says, what is the meaning of wet my whistle? To wet your whistle, it's a phrase, it's an idiom. I think of it as an older idiom. It means that you're going to try something. You're going to try something not for the first time necessarily, but it's like you're going to try something maybe you're excited for, you haven't had in a while. I'm going to wet my whistle and try this thing. So if somebody could be talking about perhaps some kind of food or a meal they're going to eat or an experience that they're going to have, and they just want to wet their whistle and they want to try things. It's like you want to get a taste of this. Would be one way of explaining it, to wet someone's whistle. Junior, hello from Brazil. How are you? Lai asks, do come by and drop by have the same meaning? Yes. In that case, I think if you're going to drop by, come by, you're going to visit. I think they're interchangeable. I think most people would say they're going to come by. When I think of drop by, for some reason, maybe this is just me, I think of a shorter visit. If somebody's typically like, I'm just going to drop by, I think it's just going to be a shorter visit and then they have to go on to some other place. So if I'm saying, hey, tomorrow I'm going to drop by and I'm going to pick something up and then I'm going to leave again. I think that might be a slight difference between drop by and come by, but you could still use either one. I'm going to come by and pick up some books, but then I got to leave. But if somebody says drop by, I think, for me, I think of a shorter visit. Bhavana asks, what's the meaning of get through? To get through something, one meaning I think is the most common is like to survive something. You're trying to survive something that's difficult, something that's challenging. You're trying to get through this experience, or maybe you're taking a class. I'm just trying to get through this class. I'm having a very difficult time with it. I'm trying to survive. I'm just trying to get through it. Let's see. Angela's asking, I don't know, maybe you're answering somebody else's question. You're tight means you're awesome. Yes, I think I think tight, and this, maybe I'm too old for some of this slang. When I think of somebody, I think mostly people would say, I haven't really heard this word too much be talking about another person like you're tight. I always hear it mostly referring to a situation like, oh, that's tight. And if somebody says, oh, that's tight, that's awesome, that's cool, that's tight. But nowadays, who knows? Maybe people are using it to refer to other people as well. Where is it? Rahul Ziad says, very helpful, keep it up. Thank you, Rahul. Glad it's helpful. Trying to get to different ones here. Cindy asks, what does it mean like tickle me means? Tickle me, it kind of means if somebody says, well, that really just tickles me, it means that they find pleasure in it, that something is funny, that it's amusing. And you could think of like the literal meaning, like to tickle someone, they're laughing. So if somebody says that something like tickles them, like, oh, it really tickles me to see this thing, it means that it just gives somebody pleasure. What is the meaning of, Pachu says, what is the meaning of bloody? So bloody to me means like it's an adjective, you're describing something that there's a lot of blood coming out. But in British English, it's used more as like, I guess like kind of an adjective, like a phrase. People are like, oh, that's bloody hell. Or they may say something is bloody impossible or bloody difficult. In that case, I think it would take on a similar meaning as very. So it's a way to, like an adverb of degree in British English of saying like very. Or like an expression like bloody hell is just like, oh, crap. Yes, Jacques, let's hit the like button. Please do. If you guys enjoy these lessons, do hit that like button. If anything, it tells me that these are useful, that it's nice for you guys to be able to come in and try to ask some questions. Halfcore asked, what's blasphemy means? So blasphemy it's a noun, and what it's referring to is somebody speaking ill about maybe someone or something, and it's like, oh, that's blasphemy. It refers to something that you should not say because it's inappropriate. It doesn't necessarily have to be like profanity and you're saying bad words, but it could be that you're just saying something that is not correct, perhaps because it's cultural or maybe some tradition, and you should not say this thing or you shouldn't do it. And they say, oh, that's blasphemy. It's bad. It's incorrect. You shouldn't do it. Ali keeps repeating, what does it mean? Bear with me. Bear with me. All right, Ali, let me help you out by giving you an example. I will answer that question in just a moment. I want you to bear with me, okay? I will get to that phrase in just a moment. Just please bear with me. All right. What is meaning? Swati asks, sir, what does it mean? Overwhelming, overwhelmed. So this is a difference between ed adjectives and ing adjectives. We use ed adjectives to talk about, like, in general, the way somebody feels. Like, I feel overwhelmed with all the work. That's the way I feel. Overwhelming is talking about more a situation. Like, my work is overwhelming. So my work is overwhelming, and it makes me feel overwhelmed. And there are so many different ed, ing adjectives, like confused. I am confused, but this is confusing. Or I'm excited. Something, the movie is exciting. All right, ed, ing adjectives, those are very common, and this is where people make just these simple mistakes. All right, Ali, so hopefully, did you guys, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the phrase bear with me, were you able to put it in context when I gave you that example? So if somebody's saying bear with me, it means like, okay, just wait a moment, and like, just, it's kind of saying, not really telling somebody to be patient, really, but it's saying that to kind of continue on the same path, that we're going to do something. We'll get to it in just a moment. Maybe if you are unhappy with something, some situation, and somebody's like, look, it's going to get better later on. Just bear with us. Just bear with it. Kind of like to endure this small annoyance, that in the future things will get better, things will improve, and you're telling somebody, look, okay, just bear with me. Or maybe you don't understand something. I say, just bear with me. I'm going to help you understand it later on. So that is how it could be used. Let's see. Something, Free Woman asks, wicked means evil. Yes, if something is, I don't know if that's an answer to another question. If something is wicked, it would mean something is evil. It's not good, like in the story, The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch. But in slang, in the Northeast, especially New England, around the city of Boston, people use wicked to say something is great, to say something is cool. And they'd say, wow, that's wicked. All right, so this is kind of, it's going on. I am going to end the Q&A right there. I will do this again in the future, but if you enjoyed these Q&As, please hit the like button. If you have other questions, write to me in the comments. And I may not be able to go through and answer all of them. We get so many comments, but what that does is it gives me ideas for future lessons. Because if some of you have the same question, then I know, okay, there is definitely a need to talk about this in a future lesson. So write those questions. Let me know what is it that you want to learn or you need to learn or that you find confusing. That will help give me ideas for some future lessons. So I hope that this helped. I hope maybe you learned something new. I tried to get through as much as I can, but I really appreciate all of you guys being here with me. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Yes, you too. Thank you, Rose, Sleepwalker, English Vibes. Go out, enjoy the rest of your day. Lolly, good to see you. And I will see you guys next time. So long.